You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hey folks, it's Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, the earliest season that makes official. Welcome to the big show. As always, for 16 years and 24 episodes, we've been bringing the Chris Voss Show with all the wonderful minds, brilliant stories, people telling you the journeys of life, things they've overcome, their cathartic moments, and how they survived them, giving you the blueprints to make your life better, survive as well. Knowing you're not alone is also important as well. So over here at the Chris Voss Show, we try to improve your life, help improve the life of others, share the knowledge. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss1 on the TikTok, and all those crazy places on the internet. Today we have another man on the show sharing his wonderful story with us, and I think you're gonna be moved by what he has to share and some of the impact that he's trying to make. Jim Shoopack joins us on the show. He is a marathoner, mental health advocate, motivational speaker, and community volunteer. His journey includes overcoming 2 battles with major depressive disorder, one in 2001 and another in 2021, both which profoundly shaped his perspective. In 2001, a life-changing experience sparked his recovery, leading to therapy, medication, and the transformative power of exercise. He started short walks with his dog, Sunny, slowly growing into a passion for long-distance running. To date, Shoopack has completed 21 marathons, including 4 in 4 months in 2016. I'm tired just thinking about that. With a personal goal of reaching 100 marathons, a symbolic journey to reclaim the days Jim lost to depression and raise awareness for others who suffer in silence. Welcome to the show. How are you, Jim?
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me, and everyone who's listening, watching, what have you. It's great to be here. So, yeah, thank you again.
Give us any .coms. Where do you want people to find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Jim Shoopack, JimShoopack.com. No spaces, just everything, straight out. You could find me on LinkedIn at Jim Shoopack, same name, JimShoopack. Facebook, Jim Shoopack, and Instagram, same thing.
So give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside what you do there on your website and to help people?
Really, a lot of what I do is hopefully, my goal in life is to give hope to those people who either have gone through depression, and depression has it has more of a mild form, a moderate form, for lack of a better word, and a major form. And I had the major form, but that doesn't dispel the minor form, or if you want to call it the mild form either. But it's just to kind of give hope to those people who are either currently suffering or have suffered through a depressive disorder or any type of mental illness, for lack of a better word, like anxiety, schizophrenia. I didn't have any schizophrenia, anything. It was anxiety and major depressive disorder. But I think really in opening the conversation and speaking freely about it is the only way that we're going to eradicate the stigma. So that's really what I'm here for, is to provide hope and also to give hope to those who have lost a loved one to suicide, which unfortunately is the case in my family.
Yeah. Does you mentioned, talking about this stuff and the importance of it. A lot of people have a hard time, especially men, with depression, quietly holding in their feelings and dealing with their issues. As men, we kind of learn, we seal off. No one cares about our feelings and our emotions, really, unless you pay a therapist. Then they care a whole lot at $100 an hour. And I'm not negating therapists. I'm just making a joke here, people. Go see a therapist, and professional ones, please. Don't buy crystals. So anyway, that's a running joke we have on the show. Basically, tell us your journey. Let's start at the beginning. How did you grow up? Was there a family? Was there a history of depression in your family? And let's go from there.
Not mom or dad's side, not on my parents' side. I could say that on somewhere down the line there was, because I did have one cousin, like a second cousin, if you will, who he did die by suicide, and I had another cousin who, Yeah, but this was in the past. So like I guess he would have been a second cousin of sorts. I was just a young kid, I maybe in my teens or something like that. And another one had an overdose. You know, I don't know if that was really a suicide, but it could have been because of the overdose. I don't know. So that only God knows. That's the way I look at it. But the one definitely was a suicide. I remember my grandma calling us when she had discovered, you know, what had happened. And it was before like the cell phone. So I wound up driving down there and just to make sure she was okay, because that's obviously a very traumatic event.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, so that's really, I guess, if there's any history, that would be the history. But as far as my mom and dad, no, there was nothing.
Huh, interesting. When did you first, you know, I suppose you were like living your life, having a good time, everything seemed fine. When did you first, you know, hit up against this wall of depression and stuff?
This would have been in 2001. I can almost remember it. It was in the winter, of 2001. I mean, some people get the winter blues. Yeah. And, you know, I still, to a degree, get them in Pennsylvania. Let's just say that the weather is not necessarily, or the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania, it's not always sunny and 70 like it might be in San Diego or something like that. So I still get them. But at the same time, I think what had happened was I was youth leader at my church and I absolutely loved the position. But I had reached a certain age where it was like, all right, I'm basically making minimum wage here and I need to do something. I wasn't going to be a priest. I had, you know, thought about it and I, you know, contemplated, but it wasn't my call. It wasn't God's, you know, he didn't call me to the priesthood. I'm devout Catholic and what have you, but it's not something that I was called to do. But at the same time, it just out of the blue, it really hit. And it was almost as if the person that you're talking to now, for example, as if my soul, my spirit was just kicked out of my body. I'm pretty jovial, pretty happy. I'm the type of guy who loves to do pranks. You know, if you've ever seen Impractical Jokers, you know, people would call me the fifth Impractical Joker because I love pulling pranks on people. Forget that. I was the 180. It was like a very, very sad, and it was just out of the blue. It just kind of happened. I do have a seizure disorder. I only had a couple, thank God, in my life, but the chemical imbalance that existed there, that was pre-existing, could have potentially played a role in this. Again, I don't know for sure, but my neurologist who I've spoken to, you know, when I said straight up, I said, you know, Dr. Shabria, could this have occurred because of this? He said there's a chance, yes. So it could have been that this led to this, and then my, you know, the desire to potentially want to change careers and not know where I was going in life. You know, now I am also a teacher, and I'm completing my 18th year in education and as a soccer coach. So it's where I'm at now is fantastic. But at that point in time, I didn't know what the future held. You know, I didn't have much money because I'm earning, you know, about minimum wage. I'm this, you know, and you get the winter blues, and before you know it, anything could spark it. And that's what happened. And really? I just remember not wanting to get up. I remember having thoughts of suicide. I remember I never did it. I never attempted it, but I had ideations at that point in time. I remember just laying on my sofa at my parents' house, and I would just sit there, and I wouldn't do anything. You know, it was just, you know, and eventually a friend of mine, and unfortunately has passed away, but he had told me, Jim, you're not yourself. Are you okay? I was like, honestly, dude, no, I'm not. And he said, you're acting a lot like you might be depressed. And at that time, I didn't know what depression was because I had no idea what it was. But I said, let me look this thing up. Of course, I had every symptom. It was the greatest. I'm married 15 years. I'm very happy. I love my niece the day she was born. But I'm saying that one of the happiest days of my entire life was the day I found out I had depression. Because once I know what I had, I knew how to go back at it. I knew that what I had a name. And then I was like, okay, I need to go see the doctor. You know, I need to see a medical doctor and go from there, because it was, you know, it's not normal for me to have thoughts of suicide. It's not normal for anyone to have. That's something you should go see a medical professional. You know,
technically
I'm sorry. I apologize.
No problem. I was just going to interject here. Yeah, normally we're predisposed as human beings to preserve ourselves. You know, if I come at you with a knife, you're either going to run off or you're going to defend yourself, fight or flight mode. You know, and you know you're not going to take being killed easily. And the body has to, and the mind really has to abuse itself to reach that point where people want to shut off that voice in their head, and they're tired of just being under attack. And sometimes, getting help helps. So at that point, what did you do? Can you hear me?
I must have looked. I'm sorry. Yeah, I must have. I laughed because I must have looked at 10 different websites for the symptoms of depression.
Mm-hmm.
And I printed them all out because I'm like, I couldn't believe that this one had the symptoms. And I said, okay, this can't be right. So I wound up looking at others, printed them all out. I said, oh my gosh, all of them have the same symptoms. I was thrilled to know that how I felt had a name and that I could keep moving on. At that point, my medical doctor was the mom of some of the kids at my church where I was youth leader. So I had emailed her and I had told her, I was like, look, is it possible to make an appointment with you? It's a sensitive topic, but do you mind if I come in and see you? She was like, yeah, that's fine. It was like a Mission Impossible thing, Chris, because here I am going in through the back door to go into the office because I was embarrassed. I didn't know, at that point in time, I didn't know that, it was just the stigma got the best of me, and here I am thinking like, are they going to put me in a straitjacket and put me on the 6th floor? Because that's what you see on TV.
Yeah, that's what you see on TV. One flew over the cuckoo's nest.
So we've kind of like that was kind of normalized where I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, is what is going to happen to me worse than how I feel? Yeah. And, she told me something that I if you folks take nothing else from this, I want you to listen. She said, Jim, you're not the first that I've ever diagnosed with depression, clinical depression, and you sure as heck are not going to be the last. So if any of you out there, she told me that and it changed my life. It changed my perspective because I realized this is something that I am not the only one who suffers from this. In fact, about the research says 1 in 4, but that's only based on that will have a mental illness. But based on my research, that's based on the research that exists. Mm-hmm. And that's any mental illness. But based on research that I have done and talking to professionals in the field, they said they think it could be as many as 1/2 that will have and I'm not saying major depressive disorder, because I'm talking it could be minor, it could be something slight, it could be something in their life, because we've all suffered some sort of trauma in our life. It could be a minor trauma, it could be major trauma. And that trauma, you don't know when in your life it could trigger something.
Yeah.
And so that's something that to bring to people's attention, that if it's okay to not be okay. But it's not okay to stay that way. Get help. You had mentioned the therapist. That's one thing that my original doctor had said. She said, Jim, I want you to, I'm going to give you antidepressants, and I also want you to consider going to therapy. Now, you have to remember, at this point in time, therapy was something that, in my mind, you're laying on this sofa, and there's the psychologist, taking notes, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't that at all. I met with this wonderful woman, very caring person. I went to her office locally in the Poconos. And, I remember the first time I met, I just bawled my eyes. It was like a cleansing, like just a waterfall. But it was a cleansing that I needed, because I didn't know what was going on in my life. And it was, and after, I'd say, a couple months, she's, Jim, you are doing so well. And by then the medication had taken a hold, because it takes a good 2 to 3 weeks, probably closer to 3 weeks, before it finally gets into your system. And I will say this to also the listeners, the watchers, is not all antidepressants are the cure-all. There will be some that will take you back. And you have to be patient with yourself and honest, because if you start feeling worse, you may talk to your doctor right away. Go to the ER, let them know, because we want you here tomorrow. Tomorrow needs you, and your family needs you. There's great things there's some awesome things on the other side of this darkness that you might be feeling now, and you just have to get through. And there are people there who will help you get through.
Yeah. I want to put an exclamation mark on some of your stuff. Sure. Like you talk about knowing that you're not alone. One of the problems people get inside of their own head with depression and sometimes self-harm is they think they're alone, and they isolate themselves sometimes, which makes it worse. But they basically think that I'm probably the only person who has this affliction. It's just me. No one cares, whatever. It kind of becomes a self-fulfilling, this spiral downward sort of thing that can happen to you. And what a lot of people don't realize is, talking to people can help. And some people are embarrassed. I think some people feel a bit of shame. Oh, there's something wrong with me. And it's okay that there's something wrong with you, because, I think one of the great identifiers you made was, all right, now that I know I'm not alone, now I know that other people have this affliction, I can figure out a way through them and their knowledge on how to fix this and improve the quality of my life. I went through what you did. I grew up with OCD, ADHD as a child. I would open and check the doors 50 times a night to make sure they were locked. OCD, really bad, still have ADHD. And one day I was having panic attacks like every day. Every day I was having panic attacks. And I would go through high anxiety and break things and destroy office equipment, and I just fucking lose it. And so finally I reached a point where I wanted to start carrying a gun in the car because I kept having road rage, and that was never going to end well. And so that was at the point that fortunately my brain went, you know what, I think we need some help here. And I had some bad episodes where I was having massive brain. It just felt like my brain was just hurting. And finally I went into the ER one day and I just go, I think I have brain cancer. So I don't know what's going on with me, but I can't do this anymore. And the gal told me, this is in the 90s, so we didn't talk a lot about depression and stuff. And she goes, yeah, you got that there anxiety. And I was like, I never heard of this before. And I'm like, right. Anxiety? Yeah, I also have fear, love, kindness. Yeah. What the fuck? What the fuck are you telling me? I mean, it's like, everybody's got anxiety. You get anxiety, you're anxious about something, And she's no, hold on, calm down. Because I was about ready to tear into her. And because, I was so amped up with, right, all this stuff. And so she explained to me, okay, this is a term that's a medical term that's designed for people that have anxiety like yours. Mm-hmm. And so she put me on some horse tranquilizers that by the time I weaned myself off of them, they were powerful enough to, I don't know, put an elephant down to sleep. And I remember cutting them down as I was weaning myself off them. And it used to be I would take 2 at a time, a couple times a day. And at the end of my weaning off, if I took a quarter of a single one, it knocked me asleep. I mean, that's how jacked up I was. And I went home that night, and for the first time, when the tranquilizers kicked in, and I don't know, remember she gave me antidepressant stuff, I finally felt like a human being. Everything went calm for a while. And so she recommended, go see a therapist or a psychologist, or whichever one is the one that recommends drugs. And she says you may want to talk to them or talk to, somebody. Yeah, psychiatrist. Yeah. And get help. I was like, okay, fine, whatever. So I went to my therapist, and found one and went and got help. And he put me on Zoloft. And, I had to go through the whole procedure of Zoloft, where I had to, get it balanced out, get it right, and all that good stuff. And then it came out the other side. About 2.5 months later, when the dosage hit me just right, I experienced what it was like to be normal and a human being and be able to pick up my thoughts and put them back down. And it was quite the amazing thing. Feel free to respond to any of those things that I made on your thing, and let's continue on with your story.
Oh, yeah. First of all, thank you for sharing that, Chris, because I know, especially as a man, they tell us you have to man up, this and that. So this is not something you man up with. Hey, if I have a broken ankle, you're going to tell me to man up?
Just like, man up, put that compound fracture back in your leg, and you'll be fine.
Go ahead. Go back on the soccer field or the football field. Yeah. Just man up. You'll be fine. Or, dude, are you kidding me? So it's not as easy as some people think. And I think for me and for you, we manned up by getting help. That's how you
exactly. Man up. I like that.
That's how you man. And so for me, when I went to the doctor and she said, go to the therapist, and those 100 days, I call them 100 days in hell, because when I tell you, I prayed daily, Chris, it was like I remember saying daily, it was, Jesus, please take me or make me better. I don't care which. Take me or make me better. I don't care. That was so I'm not going to take my own life, but please stop this pain one way or the other. Either you take me home to heaven, or you please help me to stop. And I think, and sometimes I know people will they'll pray and they'll say nothing happened. I said, no, but I had a friend who said, hey, you might have depression. Then I looked it up. Then I went to the doctor. The doctor could help me. Then she prescribed the medicine, then the therapy. So in my opinion, God will not necessarily bake the cake, but he'll give you the ingredients. You want to bake the cake? He's, look, I'm going to teach you, child. You can bake this cake. You can do it, but I'm not going to bake it for you. So that's the way I looked at it. And it really taught me just a perspective of how I could just achieve some pretty cool things. Because, I was not a runner. In fact, in soccer, Chris, I was a goalkeeper. Half the reason I was a goalkeeper was because I didn't want to run. Well, God has an interesting sense of humor, my friend, because, as you said earlier, I had 21 marathons. Now, and I did 4 in 4 months in 2016, and so for me, it was when I was really bad. Sonny was our golden retriever. I mean, he passed away years ago, but I'll tell you what, I call him Saint Sonny. Because that dog, he would put his little nose, like, I don't know if you can see that, but about an inch or two away from me when I was laying down. And that was his way of not saying, hey, I need you to take me for a walk. It was, hey, I need to take you for a walk, but I need you to put the leash on me so that we can go. And then whenever I would go outside in nature, because nature's proven to provide like a spark of just that feel good, just being outside and even just walking, dopamine. And yeah, exactly. And so for me, it was awesome because first of all, I love dogs and I love cats too, but I have a special place in my heart for dogs. And so I'd be walking them and we'd go around the corner. That was maybe the first day. And then before you know it, it was like, we'd be walking further. Maybe it was like a half a mile or a mile. And then I'm like, holy cow, let me try like just jogging, and here we are. Like, in fact, my first, no, pardon me. They usually say with running, you should go 5K, 10K, half marathon, then marathon. Just build up to it. Don't do what I did. I did a 5K, then I went right to the marathon. Yeah. So it's probably not the best, but that just showed me what depression and overcoming it did. It just showed how far I could go and that our minds are more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. Like if you really, and like, when I could shut down my mind, because my mind used to go a mile a minute. I couldn't sleep. Now it's like there's silence. And it's like such a blessing. Peace of mind is one of the biggest blessings as far as I'm concerned, Chris, because you can just sit there and be present. You can be present in the here and now. You don't have to worry about what happened, what's going to happen. And it was not always like that for me. In fact, up until recently, it wasn't like that for me. Like I'd always have something in my mind jumping around. Okay, what do I have to do next? And now I don't, and it's great. Wow. And so that was great. And I have to say, I have to go back and again, thank God, because I've never used drugs before. What I'm about to tell you, Chris, or any of your listeners. But the one day I'll never forget, I was praying. I fell asleep on my sofa, and I had an out-of-body experience where I had seen, if you know who the Holy Family are, it's Jesus, baby Jesus, the Blessed Mother, Mary, his mom, and Saint Joseph, right in the corner of my bedroom, or not bedroom, the living room. Chris, I've never used drugs before. I don't drink. I don't smoke. For me, and I'll tell you, when I came back to my body, I knew I had the fear of God, man, because my heart rate, if I had a Fitbit, it would have been over 200 beats a minute. Wow. It was like just, but at that point in time, it was almost like God was telling me, like, I hear you. You're going to be okay. And it wasn't long after that Wendell told me, my friend Wendell, that, hey, you have depression, this, that. So it was almost like I'm hearing your prayers. And that for me, that was just, I don't deserve to be able to see something like that, but for whatever reason, the prayers allowed me to. And, maybe it was just, and that was just the first bout. I mean, I don't know if you want me to continue with the second bout. I can, go into that because
let's get into that. We're running time, so let's get into it.
So basically after that, like I had gone on some service trips, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Honduras, West Virginia and Appalachia, Camden, New Jersey. Just it gave me perspective on poverty, gave me perspective on what truly is important in life, and that's just helping people. Because my mantra when I meet someone new, I think to myself, how do you treat animals? How do you treat pets? And how do you help other people? How do you boost them up? People who are disadvantaged. Those are the two things I need to know about you. If you are good about doing those two things, then I want to know more about you, because those two things show me that you are a good person and that you want to, we could have just as easily been born in a third world country, Chris. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And I tell my students, hey, who wants to win the lottery? And their hands go up. And I said, guess what? You did. You live in the United States of America. You have the opportunity to do things that people in other countries don't have a chance to.
Yeah.
I said, you need to don't take that for granted. You have to do something with that. But that being said, so during COVID, teaching was, to say it was a challenge would be an understatement. I don't want to use any expletives, but we'll just say it was, a lot of teachers became very burned out. We had a lot of teachers retired. That's not just at my district. That's at districts throughout the country. Yeah. It was just way too much. Now, my brother, who was always quiet, but actually when I had a seizure when I was a young kid, he saved my life because I didn't have a history of seizure in my family. I was turning blue. He was there. Hey, Mom, Dad, Jim's turning blue. Pick me up. My dad did, and if Bob wasn't there, my brother, I wouldn't be here today, most likely. But April 26th, he hadn't been doing well. He went to the ER it was Easter of 2021. I'll never forget it. And because he wasn't feeling well, and they couldn't diagnose him with anything. They couldn't find anything wrong. So he wasn't sure, but he was still acting himself. He was goofy, very intelligent person. Oh my gosh. But then he just progressively got worse and worse. And what it was, he got in his own mind that if he fell asleep, he wouldn't wake up. And then before you know it, you're not sleeping, and this is what's happening. So then he unfortunately, he took his own life on April 26th, now in 2021. I'll never forget the call I got from my mom. It was about 3 a.m. Oh gosh, let's see. It was just, I have no words. Like my parents still live at the same house, but we got a blessing in his room. They're very devout Catholics. They go to mass every day. You don't feel anything here as far as negativity is concerned. It's a very positive thing. My parents are two of the most loving people. I'm so blessed to have parents such as them, and just other people around me that care about me. But when the school year ended, when I tell you, Chris, I took a nosedive, and it was just because I was so busy. The school year ended. But at that point in time, I knew I had depression because I remember I was married at that point, and I still am. Sorry, Jane Person. We'll celebrate 15 years in August. She signed a long-term contract. Thank you. She signed this long-term contract. So you want to keep it that way, and I know she was a keeper because at that point in time, through good times and bad times. I'll tell you what, she was there through bad times, and I knew I had depression because of the first time. And I told her, I was like, Jan, I said, I have to go see the doctor. But this time, Chris, it was even worse. It was like, it lasted the entire summer. I had hallucinations. I believe, and this is entirely, I believe this was an attack from the devil. I entirely do. I think, he tries to destroy a family. My brother had just died. Why not take the other son? And you were talking about if you have a knife. Trust me, I had thoughts in my brain, and even getting up at night because I had to go to the bathroom or if I forgot to take medicine. And the thought said, hey, I can take this pain away from you, but I need you to pick up the knife.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that happens with suicide is, we've had people on the show that have talked to us. It leaves behind on average 6 people that are survivors. And it does the most damage to those 6 people because there's questions that are unanswered. It's hard for them to find closure. There's no warning. If if someone's old and they have a disease, they're in decline. Nobody gets out of here alive. We all kind of know how this ends, and some people are moving at it faster than others, unfortunately. But you have a warning, and you can have them. You can sit down. I sat down with my dad as he was having heart attacks and strokes, and things were clearly progressing the wrong way. I sat down with him and spent time with him, and got closure on a few things, and made sure the decks were clear, so that when he was gone, I wouldn't feel like there's something we should have talked about or cleared up between the two of us. And so that impacts people massively, more so than they realize, when suicide happens in a family, or if you're one of those 6 people that's closely related to that person. You also feel like you're stolen, like something's been stolen from you a little bit, is the mentality. You deal with sadness for the person, the loss, but you're kind of angry at the person for doing what they did, stealing themselves from you, and and then the guilt, where you're like, should I have seen the signs? Should I have reached out more? Should I have called them more? Should I have talked to them more? All that sort of survivor guilt that goes on. And so I just want to make those highlights, because they're really important for people to understand that that's kind of part of the grieving process. But the suicide leaves behind a mark that's very different than a death. And sometimes it leaves behind a mark that gives permission. Many times you'll see if a father or mother commit suicide, a child of that father or mother will commit suicide. Sometimes there's a lineage of it. I think Ted Turner had 3 suicides in his family, and he really thought that he would commit suicide by like 45 or 50. So it can have that kind of profound effect on survivability, and it almost kind of brings down the wall of when you look at suicide as a final solution, but also a very painful end. It kind of makes it just permissible, I think is the word I'm looking for, and it makes it like more okay, which is a weird way to say that, but it does. I mean, people go, Bob committed suicide, can't be all that bad, maybe. It takes away some of the stigma. I think that's the other word I'm looking for. Your thoughts on that? And
yeah. I mean, this is the thing. Like for me, you hit the nail on the head when you said the anger, the denial, the second time I went to the doctor, it took me the entire summer to get my head clear. And when I tell you, it's a miracle I'm alive today, Chris. Like, I was walking a tightrope. If it weren't for the love of my parents, it wasn't love for my dogs. I have 3 dogs at home. They're Chihuahua mixes. And I just couldn't, I would picture them finding me. And I couldn't, it was like, I can't do that. I cannot do that. I said, and just, my parents had just lost a son. And I said, I can't. I said, I will live with this pain. I said, I'm going to have my faith, my hope, and that I will get better. And thank God I did. But I went to therapy, and I still go to therapy 4 years later. And there's even times weekly therapy. My therapist is an angel. And people who, I want to say this too about therapists. Some people say, I tried therapy, didn't work. Okay, that's one person you tried therapy. Now, if you date somebody and it doesn't work, does that mean you're never going to date again? So you need to look at it like you're not marrying this person. They just need to be someone that is going to help you to feel better, help you to process your emotions. So maybe it didn't work with one therapist, but there's so many therapists out there, and we need more therapists to begin with. Like in my dissertation, that was part of one of the things I found out was like we're lacking in therapy and the number of people, therapists. But as far as my therapist, she even told me, she said, the fact that you have a brother who died by suicide, that suggests you have a higher chance of you doing the same thing.
Yeah, and just like we talked about.
So
how did you overcome it? How did you get through that experience?
Now with that, I will say that happened in the summer, and my wife and I would go walking in nature. Like basically there's a couple trails near us. We would go walking pretty much every day. I had to be with her. I couldn't be by myself. I was afraid to be by myself. Wow. Otherwise, I would be cowering in the recliner. And she went to bed. All right, I'm going to bed too, because I was afraid to be alone awake. Sorry, I couldn't do it. That's how bad it was. Mm-hmm. I had hallucinations. I literally would see, again, the reason I think it was an attack from the devil, I would see people who maybe had, something like some tattoo or some shirt, and then it would plug into my mind, and I would see people with that same face. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was that bad. And even Susan, my therapist, she said, Jim, you're one of the worst I have ever seen in my 25 years of therapy. Mm-hmm. But she also told me, you're one of the biggest changes in such a short time that I have had in 25. And she said, that's nothing short of a miracle. That's because of God, she said. And I every day I say, I go to mass on Sundays in the summer. I'll try to go more, but just being close to God, getting communion, praying. I do my rosary. We like to go to shrines, my wife and I, to honor the saints, what have you. I have a devotion to Padre Pio, to Saint Michael the Archangel. Whenever I'm in the shrine area, I'm in a place that takes me closer to God, and I feel a calmness unlike I've ever felt before. And it's just such a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful feeling. But that's what we did. And then eventually my wife, like a good coach would, she said, Jimmy, I'm really busy today, because she was taking classes. She said, hey, I'll walk with you in the morning, but in the afternoon, I want you to try to walk by yourself. Just be like half a mile. It's like, all right, I'll do my best. I don't know if I'll be able to make it. Like, I might go and turn right back around, but I would get out of the car and say, okay, we're going to try this. And it was something that, for me now was simple. Mm-hmm. But at that point in time, Chris, it was the most difficult thing I did.
When you're depressed, everything feels like 500 pounds on you, weighing on you.
Even today, if I go into a supermarket, it's the most, for me, I love shopping for food, because when I was depressed, I couldn't go anywhere. And just to be by myself, just walking around, I love it. It's just such a good thing. And, after that, before that, I had earned my doctorate at that point. And I think the busyness of the doctorate, then my brother dying, then the COVID, I think all that just basically, took control.
Yeah.
And again, I really think this was an attack. I really think it was a spiritual attack.
Oh.
I mean, people can believe what they want. It's just based on my feelings and what I went through. But what I try to do now is just to honor my brother's life by helping other people. See, again, like I said, the two things I need to know about someone before I know if I want to know more about them is, how do you treat animals, and how do you help other people who are disadvantaged? Once I know that is the thing then it's, hey, you sound pretty cool. I want to get to know more about you, because we all have, if I'm on a podcast here, if you have a podcast, obviously we have opportunities that other people don't or didn't. And I think it's so important to help other people with those opportunities that we have, because they're really blessings. And so that's kind of, my thing. And I'm hoping that my memoir, I'm working on it now. I started writing it a couple years ago, but I had to put it aside only because it was giving it some of the mindset of the depression and how serious it was kind of, it was really taken over. And I said, okay, I need to put this away. Now that we're, 4 years after the fact, I can kind of dive into it a little bit more, and I feel a lot stronger mentally. And I think that's because of the therapy. I also surround myself with good people. I look at every, interaction with a person as energy. Like, it's either an investment or it's a withdrawal. If I go in and I talk to someone and I feel fulfilled and it's that we've got some from each other, that's an investment. But if I go in and I talk to somebody and it's, oh my gosh, this person, it takes so much energy to deal with. Obviously, it's a withdrawal, and it's like, after so many withdrawals, it's kind of like, maybe I need to distance myself from this person.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of energy too, because that stress can lead to anxiety, can lead to other things. So I've kind of learned to keep my boundaries.
Boundaries are important.
Yes.
Yeah, you got to maintain, there's some people that are drama queens and they'll emotionally drain you and, all that stuff. And you've got to be basically ability to cut some of those vampires on, emotional vampires. They will just drain you with their drama and their problems, and they'll always tell you their problems, but when you tell them yours, they somehow they're like the phone line goes dead.
Exactly. Yeah. They don't care, and that's why you really. And I always say you have to surround yourself with good 3, 4, 5 people that you can be your authentic self with. That and you don't have to explain who you are. It's just, this is who I am, take it or leave it. Fortunately, I'm married to one of them. I have 3 dogs at home, even though they're not human. They let me be who I am, and so that's 4. And then I have my parents. That's 5 and 6. So there we go. So we're pretty good at that, and my niece, she's my brother's daughter, who is in the University of Arizona. We'll see her this summer, and I promised Bob that I would love her for the both of us and spoil her for the both of us, because she's a chip off the old block. She's a smart cookie, that one, man. She started off her college year as a sophomore because she had so many AP credits. And I told her, I said, you got that from your dad. You didn't get it from me. But I said, the silliness and the goofiness you have, that's totally from me. So yeah, it's nice. And, just having the ability to help other people, Chris, like really, and this opportunity has certainly done that, and I hope people listening just remember that there are people who care about you. The 988 hotline is out there. You can call them, you can text them 24/7. There's somebody there who's trained, who will help you. They'll walk you through, the process. You can go to the ER, that you had done, Chris, courageously done. I appreciate you sharing that for your audience, because it's important for people to know that, again, there are places that you can go. And that text message 988, that could save your life. It could save somebody's life.
And it's free too. So
it is,
very important.
And
I think it's anonymous. Like it will let you be anonymous if you want. And for some people, they're still maybe overcoming shame or potential shame or the guilt. They're like, I really, I don't like asking for help. I don't want anybody to know who I am, that I have this affliction. Yeah. And that's okay if that's the way you want to step through it. But yeah, you're right. Having the access to that is really important, and it's so free and it's so easy. Yeah. And they can help you.
Yeah. Like it's just, even for me, when I started with my journey with depression, I didn't really tell anybody. I didn't want anybody to know. I did talk to my priest, who was my boss at the time. And, he was very understanding. He even told me, Jim, this is all you need to do. 3 things every day. Now, one thing can be get out of bed. The other thing is go to the bathroom, because in order to go to the bathroom, you have to get out of bed. And at the same time, unless you're going to pee in your bed, and he said, I know you like coffee. So how about you make a cup of coffee?
Oh, see, that's what you need right there is coffee.
So
plenty of coffee.
But then after you do those 3 things, you feel accomplished, like you did. And then before you know it, those 3 things will be other things. It could be, hey, I made lunch for my family. I went for a run. I did, so it'll eventually get bigger. And my other priest, I will say, after my brother died, and we had a good heart to heart. And for people who've lost someone by suicide, he told me this. He said, Jim, don't should on yourself. What he meant by that is don't say, I should have done.
I think we lost that last couple lines from you. The signal dropped out.
I apologize. My priest of mine, we had met, and he had lost a loved one to suicide. And he told me, he said, Jim, you can't should on yourself. I should have done this. I should have done this. He said, you did everything you could do. I said, it's also up to the person to ask for help. And I get it, because I've been in those shoes before. Sometimes the most difficult thing you can do is ask for help, because your mind is telling you you are not worth the help. Your mind is telling you that you suck. The mind is telling you that I can make this an easy out. You should, kill yourself. And you have to battle those thoughts. And I oftentimes I would pray. I say, Jesus, Mary, Joseph, just take these thoughts away, because this is not who I am. This is not who you created me to be. So I said, let me honor you by doing this. And I said, this is what they want me to do. This is what Jesus wants. So I said, hey, you tell me what you want me to do, and I'm doing it. I feel like a cat because the cats have 9 lives. I feel like I've used about 8 of them. So hopefully the last one is a long time from now, Chris. Put it that way.
Oh, we have a million failures in life. I think that's the biggest problem. People think that in today's society, especially with the Instagram world, that everyone's living the perfect life and they post all their smiles. They post, there used to be a thing called Foursquare back in the day where people would check in to become the mayor of the, their little store, whatever the hell it was. It was kind of fun back then, but now looking back, the silliness of it was kind of a bit much. But hey, whatever. But one of the things that people would do is, my friend, he made a good point. He goes, people on social media, they never check into the methadone clinic. They never check into the jail. They never check into the pawn shop on Foursquare. Yeah. You only see them check into the luxurious restaurant. No one shares the true, no one checks in the rehab clinic on Foursquare and posts it on Facebook. People are struggling and they have their issues, but they're not posting that. And so it looks like, on social media, there's this utopia of like people living their best lives. And then you have this FOMO of people going, I want to live that life too. Why am I the only one whose life is negative and not whatever? And, in reality, people have problems. Everyone has problems. Yep. And, especially me. Have you seen me lately? No, I'm just kidding. But everyone's got problems. So it really just is a thing of getting them fixed. Ask for help. Realize, this is the whole point of the Chris Voss Show. We help tell stories and share stories that let you know you're not alone, that there are other people out there that have the blueprints that can help you get over whatever you're achieving or help you get through it. I'm not sure we can prevent like cancer or anything like that. I don't want to give that implication, but we can help. And there are other people that we have on the show that come share their stories, their journeys, their cathartic moments, how they survived. And so asking for help there's no shame in it. There's nothing wrong with it. It just means you're human. And if you haven't figured that one out, that you're human, please do, because we all are. And no one is infallible. No one's perfect. Everyone's going through their own crises, their own journeys. It's kind of interesting. We're not all fully developed at all levels. And so different people go through different things, and those challenges that they feel might be more overwhelming than not. So thank you very much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Sharing your story, your heartfelt story, Jim. And I'm glad you're out there advocating for other people, sharing your lessons, sharing your blueprints, so that we can save other lives. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
No, thank you, Chris. And thank you everyone for watching, listening. If I may, like you're worth the help. Whoever you are, if you're listening and you might have those thoughts that say, or you might love someone who is having those thoughts, and they might say they don't want to get help. They say they're not worth the help. No, you are worth the help. I am telling you that there is a beautiful light at the end of this tunnel, and the tunnel might be pretty dark, and it might be very dark. It might be pitch dark. But I will tell you this, I am proof that there's some awesome things that you can do with your life once you get through that tunnel. And, if you are a person of faith, please lean on God, because he will not let you down. I just have had too many things in my life happen. Don't expect him to bake the cake, because it's not going to necessarily happen. Yeah. And he's probably not going to make you win the lottery either. He has bigger fish to fry than that.
Wait, what?
But I've been praying for that for a long time, Chris. But I guess it would help if I played the lottery, but I don't do that either. But
wait, hold on. But you're the one who's telling me you got to do the work. I mean, part of that work is to take in.
You need a little luck.
Do the work. Part of doing the work is buying the lottery ticket.
Yeah. I guess you need a little luck. But I
like right now, you believe in God. Right now, God's up in the sky going, I've been giving him winning a lottery ticket. He just has to go to the 7-Eleven and pick it up, pay $10, and he'd be a billionaire by now. But he keeps fucking it up. So anyway.
You go to the wrong store, I guess.
Now I'm depressed because I haven't been buying lottery tickets either. Maybe I'm off the map too. I'm gonna have to get some depression medicine thinking about that. Anyway, thank you very much for coming to the show. We really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing your story. As always, folks, feel free to ask for help from people. There's no shame in it. And if someone makes you feel ashamed or shameful because you're speaking your truth, fuck those people. Go get somebody. Go get somebody who cares about you. And just about most of your friends will reach out, but also make sure you communicate it well. I've had people come out to me about different things, and they really communicated it poorly and were fumbling it really bad, and so you're trying to get help. Please go see a fucking professional therapist, people. I'm so tired of crystals and astrology and all this other bullshit. Go see a professional licensed therapist. And after COVID-19 and some of the crap we've been going on for the last 20 years or something in this country, and just the social media and all the weirdness that goes on in this world, it just gets harder and more difficult. And that's kind of how life works. So roll with it. It's been doing that since the beginning of time. But, feel free to ask for help. Get therapy. Talk to somebody. When you hold your poison inside you, it kills you inside because it just festers. And it's kind of like a snake bite. You got to open it up and bleed it out and get it out of your system. Helps have somebody who can help you bandage it up. You'll feel better. Thanks, Jim, for coming on the show. Give us your .com one last time as we go out.
Sure. It's JIMSHOO, P as in Peter, ACK.com. You can also reach me at email, so if any of you struggle out there and you want to talk to somebody who's gone through it, even if it's just you need a little pep talk or you need something like that, the email is last name first. So it's SHOO, P as in Peter, ACK, JIM @gmail.com. And then again, I'm on LinkedIn, Jim Shoopack. I'm on Facebook, Jim Shoopack. I'm on Instagram, Jim Shoopack. If you do email me or through Facebook or Instagram, please tell me that you heard me on the Chris Voss Show, because in that way I'll know to add you. It's just so that I know, where you found me. And that, again, I do speaking about mental health awareness, putting your best mind forward. That's my new talk. And at the same time, even just to support families who maybe have lost someone to suicide, because it sucks. I have survivor's guilt myself because I've gone through depression twice, and I'm still here. But the therapy and the medicine have helped. Plus, nothing like the love of a dog. I will say that. So if you don't have them, those will definitely help. But yeah, Chris, God bless you, brother. I really appreciate you.
Thanks,
and appreciate your audience for being awesome.
Thank you.
And you, Joe, you're awesome too, Chris.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And so are you. And so are people. Everyone out there is awesome. Just live your potential. And like I say, I've had 2 bouts of depression in my life, not quite as bad as yours. I got medication. I took the time to let that medication work, because they have to dial in the right setting for you. It is a changeover, but you have to get used to slowing down a little bit, but your brain eventually fixes it and moves on. And I say that because a lot of people don't give medicines the time. They're like, I took Prozac for a week and it didn't help, and I quit. That can be worse for you, so don't do that.
That's why they're called medical professionals, because they know what to do. You yourself are not the medical professional. So if they tell you to take the medicine for a certain amount of time, take it for that amount of time.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming to the show. Thanks, Charles, for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTok, and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time. And that's